You've spent years building a life that feels like piles and files of clutter, and it's all starting to close down around you. I know how you feel. The piles are stress, and the unfinished someday projects are starting to wear you down because honestly, they're not just in your physical space, they're in your mental space as well. Let's begin a transformation that clears all that chaos away and helps you regain the peace that you need inside. When I first retired, I thought organizing would be something I could do and I could handle things. But I just started moving from one pile to another, from one stack to another, from one room to another, from one closet to another, and I was really not going through our items the way I needed to. I'll tell you a funny story. I was clearing out our house in New York, and it was about 100 degrees outside on a hot, steamy summer New York day. I was in the eaves of our attic of our home, of our family home, where we had 6 kids and 6 kids worth of stuff in the home. And I thought, you know what? Now's the time. And I thought I'd start at the top and go to the bottom. I always thought a system would make it easier for me. Little did I know that our son, Christopher, who was an amazing golfer and played golf all through college, a couple of his golf bags were stuck in the eaves of the attic. Imagine this. I'm telling you, it's 100 degrees outside, so it's maybe, 110 degrees in the attic? And I'm going through and I grab his golf bag. And the thing that terrifies me almost more than anything in the world comes leaping out of the golf bag and running up my arm. Yes, it was a mouse. It wasn't just one mouse. It was a family of mice that had been living in his golf bag. The clutter that was in our eaves of our house, I then started to realize became a home for creatures that I didn't want in our house. Of course, he had left, granola bars and different types of snacks in his golf bag, which was a lure for these animals. But I completely freaked out and had a breaking point. That's when I knew I needed to not only declutter, clean, sanitize, and get my shit together. I needed to do it now because that chaos and the thought of the creatures was not only in my house, it was running through my mind. I realized as I started going through all the objects in our house, and you have to remember, I had some of my mom's stuff, my grandmother's stuff, 6 kids worth of stuff, moving all over the country with my job, accumulating different things. I mean, glasses from Houston, Texas, and plates from the Dallas State Fair, and, University of Texas sweatshirts from the Cotton Bowl. What I started to realize was these items, while they ignited memories in my head, they weren't the memories. The memories stood on their own without these items cluttering my house. So I started. When I sat back at the end of each day, and believe me, this took me more than a day or two or a week or two to get through every room, I started to think, I think for all the years that I moved piles of stuff around from city to city, from state to state, from town to town, from job to house, all the things, I started to realize that clutter in my mind, I was mistaken for comfort. Familiar objects that I thought would give me a sense of comfort now started to really irk me with the space they were taking up. Stuff becomes a stand-in for like old roles that we had in our life or maybe even old memories that we have, but it shouldn't be that way. Decluttering delayed my actions because I was completely overwhelmed until those mice ran up my arm. And when I tell you they ran up my arm, can you imagine that feeling? I don't care if you're a lady or a man watching this, it is not a good feeling and it is so gross. I'll tell you about the mice at the end of this. Retirement drift started to make it worse for me because as I was moving from room to room and spending way too much time on nostalgia and way too little time getting through the items, I started to realize that I have another week I could do this. I have another month I could do this. I wasn't putting deadlines on myself. I was without a daily routine, without things that I had to do. I was making these jobs that I could have gotten done in a smaller amount of time way too long and arduous. So I needed to switch my mindset, and that's really what I want to talk to you about today. Your space should reflect your future, not your past. Just let that sink in for a second. Your space should reflect what you want for your future, not your past. Your home should reflect who you're becoming, not who you were. And while memories are great and family heirlooms are amazing, I didn't have a lot of those. But what's junk is junk, and it was probably junk when you got it, and it's probably junk now. Or what you had before that you're no longer using that someone else could use in their daily life at the stage of life they're in, why not put it to use? So I started changing my perspective. I started looking at our decluttering, and I say our because I needed Mark's help and the kids' help and different people's help when I was working on their things. But it's self-care, not self-denial. In the beginning, I kept thinking, well, why am I acting like I didn't like, I'll pick something, the sweatshirt from the University of Texas. I had a lot of good memories going to a lot of football games at the University of Texas. Or Mark will laugh if he hears this video. I helped my girls' lacrosse team. I did a lot of fundraising for my girls when they were playing lacrosse. And I had so many oversized, massive sweatshirts and rain jackets that all said Harrison High School Lacrosse. I had seats that said Harrison High School Lacrosse. I had mittens that had Harrison High School Lacrosse. Do I still have those amazing memories of helping the girls raise money for the lacrosse team? Absolutely. Do I need to wear an extra large sweatshirt at 60 years old? Probably not. So I started thinking of simple ways that I could make this transition, which brings me to 7 things I want you all to think about. The first thing is clutter is emotional, not just physical. And let that sink in for a minute. The clutter that you see around you, when you walk into your bedroom, if under your bedside table, you just have stacks and stacks and stacks of books. And I was that person. And I mean stacks and stacks and stacks, not only of books, of notebooks, of projects that I was working on, of papers, you remember those old sheets when someone used to call you and your assistant would write you a note and say, hey, Jody, don't forget to call Sue Wattenberg. I just kept all that stuff. Aside from that, I also kept things that were kind of cool and meaningful, like all the cards that my girls ever wrote to me. And I have to tell you, to this day, I still haven't parted with them. And I have shoe boxes full of birthday cards and Mother's Day cards and thank you cards or whatever it is. I miss you, Mom cards, which as a mom, they're kind of hard to give up. But the point is, your clutter is not just emotional, it is physical. The next thing is, there is a real link between clutter and retirement drift. And what do I mean by that? Your visual chaos creates mental noise in your head. And when you have mental noise in your head, you tend to just kind of drift a little bit. Your overstuffed room or drawer or house or closet or bathroom or cabinet, all of that creates a little bit of, I'll just shut the door, and you just kind of drift along. It's inactionable almost, and it doesn't have to be. The next thing I'd say is, the third point is, start with one small win as you start to do this. I made the mistake in the story I told you earlier of starting with the eaves of the attic. And I don't know about your house or your kids or your family, but the eaves of the attic is where all the stuff that the kids didn't want to deal with, or that Mark didn't want to deal with, or quite frankly, that I didn't want to deal with, that's where it all went. That was a big project to start with. I didn't feel very accomplished for quite a long time until I got through this. So what I would say is, start with something small, a small visible win, a drawer, a closet, under your kitchen sink, even part of your closet. If you just want to do, and I did this the other day, just my long dresses, my maxi dresses for summertime, they were starting to get a little tattered, a little old, and a little cluttered. And I started to think to myself, I'm not wearing these. Somebody else could be wearing these. And I should just go through that section, because the thought of me doing my whole closet was overwhelming and I know I'd shut down. So one small visible win is really important. The next thing is, and I want you to think about this, could you use a 30-day reset method? You're going to say, Jody, what do you mean by a 30-day reset message? Well, stick with me on this. Let's just go week by week. What if on week 1 you just did bathrooms and junk drawers? That's it. The whole week is spent on bathrooms and junk drawers. And if you get through those before the week's end, you get a couple of days off, because then week 2 would be on closets and clothing. So you have bathrooms and junk drawers week 1, closets and clothing week 2. Week 3, these are big ones, so save your energy. What if you did the kitchen and the garage in week 3? All right, now think through your house. You're getting pretty good. Week 4, this is another hard one. It was a hard one for me. Paperwork, photographs, and memorabilia. I told you before, I have 6 kids. Do you know how much memorabilia I have of the kids that goes back to Evan won a soccer tournament in kindergarten. Everybody won that soccer tournament in kindergarten. No offense, Ev, but everybody won. Maddie won the geography bee in 1st grade, and that was really awesome. And we have all the plaques and the pictures and all the things. What I chose to do with those things, just as a little aside, is put them in bins with the kid's name on it. Then actually spending the time with each of the kids going through their bin, their photos, their memorabilia, their memories, and allowing them to pick what they wanted, but talking through all of those fun accomplishments, fun moments we had when they were growing up. And you have to remember, my kids are 40 to age 27 now, so they're not little kids anymore, but they loved that experience. So that's week 4, paperwork, photos, memorabilia. So that's your whole month. So now you've gone through all of that. Track each week how you've done. How'd you do in zone 1? How'd you do in zone 2? Where do you need to go back to? Where could you do a little bit more? And maybe you extend your 30 days for another week or 2 to get through the whole house. And man, I will tell you, when you're done, you will feel incredibly accomplished. The next thing is set emotional rules before you start. You're not discarding the memories, you're discarding the objects, and continue to remind yourself of that. And you're not even discarding. You might be putting them in a giveaway pile. You might be sending them to a friend pile. You might be running them to a nonprofit pile. So I don't want you to think that I'm talking about throw everything out in your house, because you probably have a lot of things in your home that other people could use. Next thing I would say is, it's kind of exciting. It's kind of exciting to build a new identity as you go, while revisiting the old identity. I have to tell you something, and I get a little, as you guys know, because you've seen me on video, I get a little teared up when I talk about things like this, but I loved my job. But I love nothing more than being a mom. Nothing more. I loved all the moments, all the challenges, all the difficult moments, all the funny moments, all the stories we can recount. But that built me to the person I am today, and is showing me who I can be in my new identity as I declutter the chaos in my world. Just think about that for yourself. And the last thing I would say is, there's another place that you could declutter. There's another place that probably holds a lot of anxiety for you, if you're like me, and that would be your calendar. Are there things on your calendar that you could declutter? Are there things on your daily agenda that you could get rid of? I've just finished this incredible book by Mel Robbins called Let Them. And in that book, I have really started to declutter things on my calendar that I either get pulled into, roped into, or guilted into, or sign myself up for so that I don't get left out. And that book gave me such a great process to really find a way to declutter my calendar and commitments, and I hope it does the same for you. Now, does the idea of a 30-day reset excite you, or does it just overwhelm you? I'd love to hear your comments below, because for me, adding some structure to it in a week by week, room by room, category by category, in order for me to do it right, I had to have the structure. But I'm anxious to hear what you guys think. Does the 30-day decluttering challenge or process. Does that overwhelm you or excite you? I hope it excites you. If you enjoyed this video, you're gonna love this one too. Sometimes the space is more valuable than the unused items. Why are you looking at me so evilly?
Worst declutter on the planet.
I am not.
You have 10 shoe boxes of cards.
I do have that.
10.
I don't know. I mean, when the kids were little and their handwriting was so cute, I know, I gotta do something
Save
about that.
one card each from the kids. That's it.
I know.